The letter that changed everything. Anna had always been the steady hand in a world of chaos. As a nurse, she had a knack for calming even the most distressed patients. Her days were filled with administering care, offering kind words, and making sense of the medical storms that life threw at others. Yet her personal life was quiet, almost too quiet. The small apartment she called home was immaculately tidy, filled with the faint scent of lavender from a diffuser in the corner. It was her sanctuary, a stark contrast to the emotionally charged atmosphere of the hospital. Her best friend, Beatrice, had been her polar opposite. Vibrant, unpredictable, and brimming with life, Beatrice lived as though the world were her playground. A freelance photographer, she was always on the move, chasing the perfect shot. The next adventure, the next big story. Despite their differences, Anna and Beatrice had been inseparable since childhood. Beatrice's daughter, Laura, a bubbly 5-year-old with curls that bounced with every step, was a testament to her mother's zest for life. Anna, as Laura's godmother, often filled in when Beatrice had assignments out of town. Their weekends together were a mix of laughter, bedtime stories, and pancakes shaped like animals. Laura adored Anna, often calling her Auntie Nurse, a nickname that always made Anna chuckle. But life has a way of flipping joy on its head. It was a warm Saturday afternoon when Anna received the call that shattered her world. The voice on the other end, choking on tears, informed her that Beatrice had been in a car accident. The details didn't matter. The word fatal was enough to send Anna sinking to the floor, phone slipping from her hand. The next few days were a blur. Funeral arrangements, legal documents, and a heartache so profound it felt like drowning. Amid the fog of grief, one question loomed. What would happen to Laura? Beatrice had no immediate family, and Laura's father had never been in the picture. Without hesitation, Anna made a decision that felt both terrifying and natural. She would adopt Laura. It wasn't just an act of love. It was a promise, to Beatrice and to Laura, that she would do whatever it took to give the little girl a stable and loving home. The adoption process was surprisingly swift. As Laura's godmother, and with no other relatives to contest, Anna soon found herself signing papers that legally made Laura her daughter. Her once quiet apartment transformed almost overnight. Toys were scattered across the living room, brightening the space in ways Anna hadn't anticipated. The smell of crayons replaced lavender, and the once silent evenings were now filled with laughter, or tears, depending on Laura's mood. Adjusting to her new role as a mother wasn't easy. Laura, grieving the loss of her mother in her own way, clung to familiar routines and often woke up crying in the middle of the night. Anna, exhausted from her shifts at the hospital, learned to navigate these emotional landmines. She read bedtime stories until her voice grew hoarse, and patiently answered Laura's endless questions about why her mother wasn't coming back. One Sunday afternoon, as Anna sorted through boxes of Beatrice's belongings, she stumbled upon a sealed envelope. On the front, in Beatrice's elegant handwriting, were the words, "To Laura on her 18th birthday." Anna froze. A chill ran down her spine as she held the envelope, feeling its weight in her hands. It was Beatrice's handwriting, no doubt, and the thought of her friend penning this letter was both comforting and eerie. She debated what to do. This letter wasn't meant for her eyes. But curiosity tugged at her, relentless and unforgiving. What secrets could Beatrice have kept from her? What would she want Laura to know in 13 years that couldn't be said now? Her hands trembled as she broke the seal. The words inside hit Anna like a freight train. Beatrice had written the letter with love, but its contents revealed a truth that shook Anna to her core. Laura's father wasn't just an absent figure. He was a real person, someone Beatrice had met during a work trip, a man named Philip. Beatrice described him as a successful businessman, someone kind but deeply entrenched in his own world. Their relationship had been brief, and when Beatrice discovered she was pregnant, she chose not to tell him. She believed that raising Laura alone was simpler than complicating his life with a child he hadn't asked for. Anna's mind raced. Should she find Philip? Should she leave the past buried? The life she had started to build with Laura felt fragile, and the idea of bringing an unknown figure into their world terrified her. But Laura had a right to know the truth, didn't she? The weight of the decision pressed on Anna as she folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain: this revelation would change everything. The next morning, Anna looked at Laura as she ate breakfast, her tiny hands clutching a glass of orange juice. She wondered if Laura, so full of innocence, would understand the complexities of adult decisions. Anna sighed deeply, feeling the enormity of what lay ahead. She had stepped into this new role of motherhood willingly, but now the responsibilities were heavier than she could have ever imagined. With a determined heart, Anna decided she couldn't keep this secret. Laura's father needed to know the truth. Little did Anna realize that opening this door would lead to challenges, heartbreak, and an unexpected journey toward understanding the true meaning of family. The search for Philip. The letter sat on Anna's bedside table, a small but significant presence that demanded her attention every time she glanced in its direction. Days turned into nights, and yet she hesitated to act. The words inside weren't just ink on paper. They were the key to a truth she wasn't sure she was ready to face. It was during one of these restless nights, lying awake and staring at the ceiling, that Anna finally made up her mind. She owed it to Laura and to Beatrice. No matter the consequences, she would find Philip. The first step was daunting. Philip was not just a name, but a stranger to Anna, a man whose existence had been hidden for 5 years. She started her search cautiously, relying on the few clues Beatrice's letter had provided. A businessman, successful, and based in a neighboring city. It wasn't much to go on, but Anna was determined. Her evenings, once spent reading bedtime stories to Laura and collapsing into bed, were now dedicated to scouring online databases and social media. Each search brought new possibilities, but no certainty. After a week of late-night sleuthing, she found him. A profile on a corporate website. Philip Romanos, CEO of a thriving tech company. His face stared back at her from the screen. His sharp green eyes and confident smile made her stomach tighten. There was no mistaking it. This was the man Beatrice had described. The next challenge was contacting him. Anna spent days drafting and redrafting an email. How do you tell someone they have a child they never knew existed? How do you explain the years of silence and why you're now breaking it? Her first attempt was overly formal, her second too emotional. By the 10th version, she had found a balance. Dear Mr. Romanos, I hope this message finds you well. My name is Anna, and I was a close friend of Beatrice Collins. I'm reaching out regarding an important matter involving her daughter, Laura. It's not an easy conversation to have, but I believe it's one you need to hear. Please let me know if you're willing to meet. Best regards, Anna. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The wait for a reply was agonizing. Days stretched into a week, and Anna began to wonder if he had ignored her message. But just when she was about to give up hope, his response arrived. Ms. Anna, I'm not sure what this is about, but I'll hear you out. Please let me know when and where to meet. Felipe. The short reply sent her heart racing. This was it, the moment she had been preparing for and dreading in equal measure. They agreed to meet at a quiet cafe in the city where Felipe lived. Anna arrived early, her nerves frayed, and sat at a corner table, clutching a cup of untouched coffee. When Felipe walked in, his presence was commanding. He was tall, impeccably dressed, and carried himself with the confidence of someone used to being in control. Anna, he asked, his deep voice startling her from her thoughts. She stood, nodding, and extended her hand. Thank you for meeting me, she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. Philip sat across from her, his expression unreadable. You mentioned Beatrice and her daughter. What's this about? Anna took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she slid a photo of Laura across the table. This is Laura. She's Beatrice's daughter. And yours." Philip froze, his eyes locked on the photograph. The confident mask he wore slipped for a moment, replaced by shock. I don't understand," he stammered. "Why didn't Beatrice tell me?" Anna explained everything. The brief romance, Beatrice's decision to raise Laura alone, and the tragic accident that had left Laura an orphan. Philip listened in silence, his hands clenched into fists on the table. When she finished, he leaned back, his eyes now focused on the ceiling as though searching for answers there. "She never gave me a chance," he murmured, more to himself than to Anna. "She believed she was doing what was best," Anna said gently. "And now, I felt you had a right to know." Felipe was silent for a long moment before meeting her gaze. Does she know about me?" "No," Anna admitted. "I haven't told her. I thought we should figure out what this means first." The conversation turned to logistics. Philip wanted proof. A DNA test to confirm what Anna was saying. She had anticipated this and agreed without hesitation. Arrangements were made for the test, and Philip promised to be in touch once the results were back. Anna returned home feeling emotionally drained. She tried to focus on Laura, who greeted her with a bright smile and a painting she had made at school. "It's us," Laura said, pointing to the figures. "Mommy's in the clouds now, but we're still together." Anna's throat tightened. She pulled Laura into a hug, holding her close. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. I love it." The following weeks were a roller coaster of emotions. Philip called to confirm what Anna already knew. The DNA test had come back positive. He was Laura's father. His voice was heavy with emotion as he spoke. "I want to meet her," he said. "I don't know what kind of father I can be, but I want to try." Anna agreed, though her heart was filled with trepidation. Laura had just begun to find her footing after losing Beatrice. How would she react to the sudden appearance of a father she had never known? The day of the meeting arrived, and Anna's anxiety was palpable. She prepped Laura as best as she could, framing Philippe's introduction as meeting a new friend who knew Mommy a long time ago. Laura, ever curious and full of questions, seemed more excited than nervous. Philip arrived at Anna's apartment with a small gift in hand, a stuffed bear with a bow. When Laura opened the door, her wide eyes studied him intently. "Hi, Laura," Philip said, kneeling to her level. "I'm Philip. It's nice to meet you." Laura tilted her head, then smiled. "You have green eyes like me." Philip chuckled, his voice thick with emotion. "I guess I do." The first meeting was tentative but warm. Laura, with her natural charm and openness, quickly warmed to Felipe, bombarding him with questions about his life, his work, and whether he liked pancakes. Philip, for his part, seemed captivated by her, marveling at her energy and the uncanny resemblance to himself. Anna watched from the sidelines, her heart a mix of hope and fear. She wanted this to work for Laura's sake, but couldn't shake the uncertainty of how it would all unfold. As Philip said goodbye that evening, he turned to Anna. "Thank you for giving me this chance," he said earnestly. "I want to be a part of her life." Anna nodded, though her mind buzzed with questions. Was she ready to share Laura? Could they find a balance between the lives they had built and the new dynamic Philippe's presence would bring? She didn't have the answers yet, but one thing was clear. This was only the beginning of their journey together. Building bridges. The days that followed Philippe's introduction into Laura's life were a whirlwind of new emotions and tentative steps forward. For Laura, the idea of having someone who could answer her questions about her mother's adventures was exciting. For Philip, it was an opportunity to build something meaningful with the daughter he never knew he had. But for Anna, it was an emotional tightrope, balancing Laura's needs, Philip's intentions, and her own protective instincts. Philip wasted no time making his presence known. True to his nature as a successful businessman, he approached fatherhood with the same determination that had built his career. He began showing up with thoughtful gifts, a watercolor set for Laura's budding artistic talents, books about explorers to satisfy her endless curiosity. Each gesture seemed genuine, yet Anna couldn't shake the feeling that Philip was trying too hard to make up for lost time. One Friday afternoon, Philip invited them both to visit his home, a sprawling estate just outside the city. It was a stark contrast to Anna's modest apartment: high ceilings, sleek furniture, and a garden that seemed to stretch forever. Laura was awestruck, running from room to room, her laughter echoing through the halls. "Do you like it here, sweetheart?" Philip asked, kneeling beside her in the garden as she admired a koi pond. "It's so big," Laura exclaimed, her eyes wide. "Do you live here alone?" Philip hesitated before nodding. "I do, but it's much better with you here." Anna stood in the background, watching the exchange with a mix of admiration and unease. Philip was trying, and Laura was responding, but the disparity between their worlds, his luxury and her simplicity, loomed large in Anna's mind. She couldn't help but wonder how this would shape Laura's perception of family and home. As weeks turned into months, a new rhythm began to form. Philip became a regular fixture in Laura's life, picking her up from school, attending her dance recitals, and even joining Anna in their weekend pancake-making tradition. Laura thrived under the added attention, her once muted laughter now a daily melody. But the dynamic wasn't without its challenges. Philip's enthusiasm sometimes bordered on overstepping. One evening, he arrived at Anna's apartment unannounced, holding tickets to an amusement park. Laura squealed with delight, already pulling on her shoes, but Anna frowned. "Philip, it's a school night," she said, her tone firm but measured. "She has homework and a bedtime routine." Philip sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's just one night, Anna. Let her have some fun." "It's not about fun," Anna replied, lowering her voice so Laura wouldn't hear. "It's about stability. She's had enough upheaval already." The tension between them was palpable. Philip eventually relented, promising to plan the outing for the weekend instead. But the incident left Anna questioning whether their parenting styles could ever truly align. Meanwhile, Laura began asking more questions about her mother. Mommy and Mr. Philippi were friends, right? She asked one evening as Anna tucked her into bed. Anna hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "They knew each other for a short time, sweetie, but your mommy loved you very much, and she wanted you to have the best life possible." Laura seemed to accept the answer, but her curiosity didn't fade. She often brought up memories of Beatrice, piecing together fragments of her mother's life. Philip, too, began sharing stories of his time with Beatrice, moments that painted her as vibrant and fearless, much like Laura herself. For Anna, these conversations were bittersweet. She was grateful that Laura was connecting with her past, but it also stirred her own grief. Beatrice's absence was a wound that had scabbed over, but never fully healed. Now, with Philip in the picture, it felt as though that wound was being reopened. The first major test of their unconventional family came during a parent-teacher meeting at Laura's school. Anna and Philip arrived together, an arrangement that raised a few eyebrows among the other parents. Laura's teacher, Mrs. Jensen, greeted them warmly and began discussing Laura's progress. "She's doing wonderfully," Mrs. Jensen said, smiling. "But I have noticed she's been a bit distracted lately. She talks a lot about her 2 homes and her new daddy." Anna's stomach tightened. "Is that a problem?" she asked cautiously. Mrs. Jensen shook her head. "Not a problem, per se. But it's clear she's adjusting to a lot of changes. Stability will be important as she navigates this." Anna glanced at Philip, who nodded in agreement. "We're working on that," he said. "Laura's well-being is our top priority." Later that evening, Anna and Philip sat in her living room, discussing Mrs. Jensen's comments. "We need to figure out what stability looks like for Laura," Anna said. "She needs consistency, not confusion." Felipe leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I agree. I want to be involved in her life, Anna. But I don't want to disrupt what you've built." Anna appreciated his words, but she couldn't ignore the underlying question. How much involvement was too much? Philip's intentions were good, but his presence had already shifted the dynamic of her and Laura's world. Would there come a point when Laura saw Philip as the primary parent, relegating Anna to the sidelines? Despite the challenges, there were moments of undeniable connection. One Sunday, the three of them went hiking in a nearby nature reserve. Laura, with her boundless energy, darted ahead, collecting leaves and rocks to show them. "Look," she called, holding up a shiny pebble. "It's magic." Philip crouched beside her, examining the pebble as though it were the most fascinating thing in the world. "You might be right, Laura. This could be a treasure." Anna watched the exchange, a smile tugging at her lips. For all their differences, Philip was genuinely good with Laura. He had a way of making her feel seen, and for that, Anna was grateful. As the sun set and they made their way back to the car, Laura dozed off in the back seat. Philip glanced at Anna, his voice soft. "She's incredible, you know. That's all because of you." Anna looked out the window, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and uncertainty. "She's resilient," she said. "She gets that from her mom." Philip nodded, his gaze lingering on Anna for a moment longer than she expected. "You're doing an amazing job, Anna. I hope you know that." But just as they began to find their footing, life threw them a curveball. Laura, who had always been full of energy, started complaining of headaches. At first, Anna brushed it off as dehydration or too much screen time. But when Laura began to lose her appetite and fatigue set in, Anna's nursing instincts kicked in. Something was wrong. A visit to the doctor led to tests, and the results left Anna reeling. Laura had a rare kidney disorder that would require immediate treatment, and possibly a transplant. The news hit like a sledgehammer, shattering the fragile harmony they had built. Philip, who had always seemed so composed, looked utterly devastated. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice breaking. "We fight," Anna said firmly, her resolve hardening. "Whatever it takes, we fight for her." As they braced for the medical battle ahead, Anna and Philip found themselves united in a way they hadn't anticipated. The disagreements and uncertainties faded into the background, replaced by a singular focus: saving Laura. In the midst of this storm, Anna realized something profound. Family wasn't about perfection or agreement. It was about showing up, standing together, and finding strength in each other when it mattered most. And for Laura's sake, they would do exactly that. New bonds, new challenges. Philip and Anna's resolve to create stability for Laura faced its first major trial with the looming threat of her illness. Life had thrown them together in an unconventional way, and while their focus on Laura united them, their differing perspectives occasionally created friction. The reality of Laura's condition was harsh and unyielding. She was diagnosed with a rare and progressive kidney disease, one that had likely been developing unnoticed for months. The doctor's words rang in Anna's ears as they sat in the sterile office. "Laura's kidneys are functioning at less than 30%. She will need a transplant sooner rather than later." Anna felt the floor give way beneath her. Philip's face, normally composed and confident, was pale. "What's the next step?" he asked, gripping Anna's hand tightly. For the first time, she saw genuine fear in his eyes. The next step involved a whirlwind of consultations, tests, and sleepless nights. Laura's health became the central axis around which Anna and Philippe's lives revolved. Despite their differences, they became an unshakable team, sharing responsibilities and leaning on one another in ways they hadn't anticipated. Philip insisted on being tested immediately to see if he could be a donor. His determination was both comforting and heart-wrenching. He spent hours reading medical journals and reaching out to specialists, trying to understand every nuance of Laura's condition. Meanwhile, Anna used her nursing background to advocate for the best care possible, meticulously managing Laura's appointments and treatments. Laura, for her part, was remarkably resilient. Though she didn't fully understand the severity of her illness, she seemed to sense the gravity of the situation. "Why do I have to drink so much water?" she asked one evening, frowning at the tall glass on the kitchen table. Anna knelt beside her. Your kidneys need a little extra help right now, sweetheart. Drinking water is like giving them a hug. Laura giggled. A kidney hug. Philippa, standing nearby, chimed in. Exactly. And you know what? Hugs make everything better. Despite their united front, the emotional strain began to take its toll. One night, after Laura had fallen asleep, Anna and Philip found themselves in a heated argument. Philip had suggested a costly experimental treatment he had read about, one that Anna felt was too risky. We should at least consider it, Philip said, his voice rising. What if it's her best chance? Her best chance is a transplant. Anna replied, her tone sharp. We don't have time to gamble on unproven methods. I'm trying to help. Philip shot back, frustration etched across his face. Do you think I don't care about what's best for her? Anna's shoulders slumped, the weight of the situation crashing down on her. I know you care, she said quietly. But this is her life. Philip, we have to make the right decisions, not just the desperate ones. The silence that followed was heavy, but it wasn't hostile. They were two people navigating an impossible situation, both desperate to protect the child they loved. The turning point came when the results of Philip's donor compatibility test arrived. He was a match. The relief was overwhelming, but it was accompanied by new fears. The risks of surgery loomed large, and Philip's willingness to undergo the procedure touched Anna in ways she hadn't expected. Are you sure about this? She asked him one evening as they sat on the couch, their usual tension replaced by a tentative closeness. It's not a small thing, Philip. She's my daughter, he said simply. I missed the first 5 years of her life. I can't change that, but I can do this. I want to do this. Anna's eyes filled with tears. You're a good father, she said softly, surprising even herself with the words. I don't think I've said that enough. Philip smiled, a rare vulnerability in his expression. And you're an amazing mother. Laura's lucky to have you. The days leading up to the surgery were a blur of preparation and quiet reflection. Laura, blissfully unaware of the full gravity of the situation, treated it like an adventure. She drew pictures of her magic kidneys and proudly showed them to the nurses of the hospital. On the morning of the operation, Anna held Laura's hand as they wheeled her into the operating room. Be brave, my love, she whispered, kissing her forehead. I'll be right here when you wake up. Philip, already in a hospital gown, leaned down to kiss Laura as well. I'll see you soon, sweetheart, he said, his voice steady despite the emotions flickering in his eyes. Then he turned to Anna, their gazes locking in a moment of shared understanding. We've got this. The hours that followed were some of the longest of Anna's life. She paced the hospital waiting room, her mind racing with 1,000 what-ifs. Every so often, she would glance at her phone, tempted to call someone, anyone, for reassurance, but she knew that no words could ease the ache in her chest. When the surgeon finally emerged, his expression calm and reassuring, Anna felt her knees weaken with relief. The transplant was successful, he said. Both Philip and Laura are doing well. Tears streamed down Anna's face as she whispered a prayer of thanks. She wanted to hug the doctor, the nurses, anyone who had played a part in saving her daughter's life. In the days following the surgery, Anna and Philip took turns staying by Laura's bedside. Philip, still recovering from the procedure, insisted on sitting in a wheelchair next to his daughter's bed, holding her hand as she slept. When Laura finally woke up, her first words were, "Did Daddy give me his magic kidney?" Philip laughed, his voice thick with emotion. "I sure did. Now you've got a little piece of me forever." Laura grinned sleepily. "Does that mean I get green eyes now?" Anna and Philip both burst into laughter, the tension of the past few weeks momentarily melting away. It was a small, precious moment, a reminder of the joy they were fighting for. As they prepared to bring Laura home, Anna couldn't help but reflect on how much their lives had changed. What had started as an unexpected collision of worlds had become something beautiful and profound. They weren't just co-parents, or partners in crisis. They were a family, forged through love, sacrifice, and resilience. And as they stepped into the next chapter of their journey, Anna knew one thing for certain. Together, they could face anything. Healing and rebuilding. The first morning home after the surgery was quieter than Anna had expected. The apartment, usually alive with the sounds of Laura's playful energy, felt subdued. Laura, now recovering from her transplant, sat propped up on the couch, a pile of coloring books and crayons beside her. She was weaker than usual, her movements slower, but her spirit remained unbroken. Philip, still recovering from his own surgery, insisted on staying close by. He had temporarily moved into a small rental nearby, determined to be part of the recovery process. Though Anna had initially hesitated about having him so close, she quickly realized how much his presence mattered, not just to Laura, but to her as well. The first few weeks were a balancing act. Laura required constant care, from monitoring her medication schedule to ensuring she stayed hydrated. Anna's nursing background helped her manage the medical aspects, but the emotional toll was immense. Every win, Laura's first steps around the apartment, her laughter at a silly joke, was tempered by the lingering fear of complications. Philip proved to be an unexpected pillar of strength. Despite his own recovery, he was always there, whether it was to make breakfast, read to Laura, or simply sit beside her when she needed company. One evening, as Anna prepared Laura's medication, she caught Philip staring at a photo on the wall, a picture of Beatrice holding a younger Laura at a park. His expression was a mix of sadness and resolve. "She'd be so proud of you," Anna said softly, handing him a glass of water. Philip looked up, startled by her words. "I don't know about that," he replied, his voice heavy. "I wasn't there when she needed me." "You're here now," Anna countered. "That's what matters." The days turned into weeks, and slowly but surely, life began to return to a new normal. Laura's strength improved with each passing day. She began drawing again, her favorite subject now a superhero version of herself with a cape and the words "Kidney Girl" emblazoned across her chest. "You're my heroes," she announced one afternoon, pointing to both Anna and Philip. "You gave me a magic kidney, and Mommy gave me Auntie Anna. That makes me super lucky." Anna's heart swelled. "And we're lucky to have you, sweetheart." As Laura's health stabilized, Anna found herself reflecting on her relationship with Philip. Their initial interactions had been marked by tension and uncertainty, but now they worked together seamlessly. Late-night conversations over cups of tea had become a regular occurrence. They talked about everything. Laura, their shared memories of Beatrice, and even their hopes and fears. One night, as they sat on the balcony watching the city lights, Philip broke the silence. "You know, when I first found out about Laura, I was terrified. I didn't know how to be a father." Anna turned to him, her expression soft. "You figured it out. You've been amazing with her." Philip smiled faintly. "I had a good example to follow." The compliment caught Anna off guard. She looked away, suddenly self-conscious. "I've just been doing my best," she said quietly. "So have I," Philip replied. "But I don't think I could have done this without you." Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, the weight of their shared journey hung between them. It wasn't romantic. It was something deeper. A bond forged through love, loss, and the unyielding desire to protect the little girl who had brought them together. As Laura's recovery progressed, Philip began suggesting outings to help her regain her energy. Their first trip was a simple walk in the park, but it felt monumental. Laura, holding hands with both Anna and Philip, marveled at the changing leaves. "Do you think Mommy can see us?" she asked suddenly, her voice small but curious. Anna felt her throat tighten. "I think she can," she said, her voice steady. "And I think she's smiling because she knows how strong you are." Philip squeezed Laura's hand gently. "She'd be so proud of you, kiddo. And of us, too." Laura tilted her head, considering his words. "I think Mommy would like us being a family." The simplicity of her statement hit both adults like a wave. They exchanged a glance, each silently acknowledging how far they had come, and how far they still had to go. The road to recovery wasn't without its challenges. Laura's immune system remained fragile, and every sniffle or cough sent Anna into a spiral of worry. Philip, too, struggled with moments of self-doubt. He often questioned whether he was doing enough, whether he could ever truly make up for the lost years. One particularly difficult evening, Anna found him sitting alone on the steps outside her apartment. He looked up as she approached, his expression raw. "I feel like I've failed her," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I wasn't there when she needed me most." Anna sat beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "None of this is your fault, Philip. Beatrice made the choices she thought were best. You didn't know. But I know now," he said, his voice cracking. "And I still feel like I'm fumbling through this." "You're not fumbling," Anna said firmly. "You're showing up. That's what matters. Laura sees it, and I see it." Philip nodded, his shoulders relaxing slightly. "Thank you," he said, his voice steadier. "For everything." The turning point came during a school event, a family day picnic. Laura, now stronger and more energetic, insisted on participating in every activity. Watching her run around with her classmates, her laughter ringing out across the field, Anna and Philip couldn't help but smile. "She's incredible," Philip said, his voice filled with pride. "She gets it from her mom," Anna replied, though she couldn't hide the pride in her own smile. "And from you," Philip added. "Don't sell yourself short." As the day wound down, Laura ran over to them, clutching a drawing she had made during the arts and crafts session. It was a picture of 3 stick figures holding hands, a small girl in the middle, flanked by 2 taller figures. Above them, a bright sun shone down, with the word family scrawled in large, uneven letters. "This is us," Laura announced, beaming. Anna felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. Philip, too, looked visibly moved. "It's perfect," Anna said, pulling Laura into a hug. Philip knelt beside them, placing a hand on Laura's shoulder. "It's more than perfect. It's us." That night, as Anna tucked Laura into bed, she reflected on how much had changed since the day she found Beatrice's letter. What had begun as a simple act of love, adopting Laura, had evolved into something far more complex and beautiful. They weren't a traditional family, but they were a family nonetheless. And as Anna sat on the balcony later that night, watching the stars with a cup of tea in hand, she realized she wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Strengthening the bonds. The quiet stillness of a winter morning hung in the air as Anna prepared breakfast in the kitchen. The apartment, once filled with the hum of hospital calls and worry, now carried a new energy, a hopeful one. The months since Laura's transplant had brought healing not only to her small body, but also to the unique family dynamic between Anna, Philip, and Laura. The holiday season was approaching, and Laura was brimming with excitement. It would be their first Christmas together as a family. Anna, normally indifferent to elaborate celebrations, found herself poring over holiday recipes and decorations. Philip, who had a knack for grand gestures, volunteered to help, promising Laura the best Christmas ever. One Saturday morning, the trio ventured out to pick a Christmas tree. The tree lot was bustling with families bundled in scarves and mittens, children darting between rows of evergreens. Laura ran ahead, her face glowing with the pink flush of cold air. "This one," she exclaimed, pointing to a towering tree with perfectly spaced branches. Philip laughed. "That tree might not fit in your auntie's apartment, kiddo." Anna smirked. "Try again, Laura. Something a little smaller." Eventually, they settled on a medium-sized tree that Laura deemed just right. As they tied it to the roof of Philippe's car, Anna couldn't help but notice the way Philip interacted with Laura. His patience, his humor, his genuine care. They were qualities she hadn't expected from the man she'd once seen as a distant stranger. Back at the apartment, They spent the evening decorating the tree. Laura took the lead, hanging ornaments with a level of focus that made Anna chuckle. "It has to be perfect," she declared, placing a glittery star on a low branch. Philip handed her a box of lights. "How about these? They'll make it sparkle." Anna, sitting cross-legged on the floor, watched the scene unfold. It was in these small moments that she felt the enormity of what they had built together. This wasn't just a co-parenting arrangement. It was a family. Messy, imperfect, but full of love. The holiday season also brought moments of reflection. One evening, as Laura slept and the apartment was bathed in the soft glow of Christmas lights, Philip and Anna found themselves talking about Beatrice. "I think about her every day," Philip admitted, his voice low. "I wonder what she'd think of all this." Anna, holding a mug of hot cocoa, nodded. "She'd be happy. For Laura. For us." Philippe glanced at her, his expression pensive. "Do you think she'd forgive me for not being there sooner?" Anna placed a hand on his arm. "Beatrice made her choice. She wanted to protect you, and she believed she was doing the right thing. But if she could see you now, she'd be proud." Felipe looked down, his eyes glistening. "Thank you, Anna, for giving me this chance." As the weeks passed, life continued to settle into a rhythm. Laura's recovery progressed, and she began returning to activities she loved, like dancing and drawing. She also started making friends at school, something Anna had worried might take longer given all she'd been through. One evening, Laura came home with an invitation to a school play. "I get to be a star," she announced, waving the paper in the air. "Will you both come?" Anna and Philip exchanged a glance, their answer unanimous. "Of course," Anna said. "We wouldn't miss it." The play was a small production, with mismatched costumes and a few forgotten lines, but it was perfect in every way. Laura, playing the North Star, stood proudly on stage, her eyes scanning the audience until they landed on Anna and Philippe. Her face lit up, and Anna felt tears well up as she waved. "That's our girl," Philip whispered, his voice filled with pride. As their bond deepened, Philip began spending more time at Anna's apartment. What had started as short visits to see Laura evolved into shared dinners and movie nights. Laura loved the routine, often sandwiching herself between them on the couch as they watched her favorite films. One night, after Laura had fallen asleep, Philippe lingered in the living room, helping Anna tidy up. They worked in comfortable silence, the only sound the occasional clink of dishes. When they finished, Philippe leaned against the counter, watching Anna as she wiped down the table. "You've done an incredible job with her," he said suddenly. "Raising her, keeping her safe. You've given her everything she needed." Anna paused, turning to face him. "I didn't do it alone. Beatrice gave me the gift of Laura, and now you're here. It's not just me anymore." Philip smiled softly. "Still, you were her anchor. You still are." The sincerity in his words caught Anna off guard. For a moment, she felt a warmth she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge before. Their partnership had grown into something more profound, a trust, a mutual respect, and perhaps even the beginnings of something deeper. As Christmas approached, Philip surprised them with a plan, a short trip to a snowy mountain cabin. "It'll be good for all of us," he explained, "a chance to make new memories." Anna hesitated at first. The idea of leaving her carefully controlled environment made her uneasy, but Laura's excitement and Philip's enthusiasm won her over. The trip turned out to be magical: snowball fights, hot chocolate by the fire, and quiet moments of reflection. On Christmas morning, Laura woke early, dragging Anna and Philippe out of bed to open presents. As she tore into the wrapping paper, her laughter filled the room, a sound that made every sacrifice worth it. Philip handed Anna a small box, his expression hopeful. "This is for you," he said. Anna opened it to find a delicate bracelet, its charm shaped like a small heart. "It's beautiful," she said, touched by the gesture. "It's a thank you," Philip said. For everything you've done. For giving me Laura. For being you. Anna felt her cheeks flush. You didn't have to. I wanted to. Philippe interrupted gently. Because you deserve it. That night, as the three of them sat by the fire, Laura curled up between them. Anna realized how far they had come. What had started as an unthinkable tragedy had transformed into something beautiful, a family built not on convention, but on love, resilience, and the courage to face the unknown together. And as she watched Laura drift off to sleep, her hand resting on Philippe's arm, Anna knew they had all found something they didn't know they were missing. A place to belong. A future built together. The quiet hum of the coffee machine filled the apartment as Anna stood by the kitchen counter, gazing out the window at the sunrise. Life, which had once felt like a relentless storm of challenges, was now settling into something close to peace. Laura, now healthier and brimming with energy, was back to her vibrant self, and Philip had firmly integrated himself into their lives. But peace didn't mean stagnation. Anna could feel the subtle shifting of her world, like the earth preparing for a new season. Philip's presence brought more than just stability. It brought questions about the future, questions Anna hadn't allowed herself to consider until now. The first hints of change came in the form of Laura's growing independence. She was flourishing at school, where she had become the star of her class, not just in academics, but also in creativity. Her drawings, often depicting her family of three, were pinned proudly on the classroom walls. One afternoon, Anna received a call from Laura's teacher, Mrs. Jensen. Anna greeted, her voice tinged with concern. "Is everything okay?" "Oh, absolutely," Mrs. Jensen said with a chuckle. "In fact, I wanted to share something wonderful. Laura wrote an essay about her family. She spoke so beautifully about you and Philip. It's clear how loved she feels." Anna felt her throat tighten. "Thank you for telling me. That means so much." After hanging up, Anna sat on the couch, staring at a picture Laura had drawn the week before. It showed the three of them holding hands, walking under a rainbow. Above them, in Laura's wobbly handwriting, were the words, "My family is my world." Anna knew then that they were no longer a patchwork of individuals navigating separate lives. They were a unit, a family in every sense of the word. The shift became more pronounced when Philip, who had scaled back his demanding work schedule to focus on Laura, started talking about long-term plans. "I've been thinking about moving closer," he said one evening as they sat in the living room, Laura fast asleep in her bedroom. Anna raised an eyebrow. "Closer? You're already a few blocks away." Philip smiled, his expression serious yet hopeful. "I mean closer, Anna. Permanently. I don't want to just be a visitor in Laura's life, or in yours." His words hung in the air, and Anna felt her heart quicken. The idea of Philip being a constant presence was both comforting and terrifying. She had grown used to sharing the responsibilities of parenting with him, but sharing her life on a deeper level was something she hadn't fully considered. "Philip," she began carefully, "this isn't just about proximity. It's about everything. Are you sure you're ready for that?" He leaned forward, his green eyes meeting hers with unwavering sincerity. "I've never been more sure of anything. I missed out on so much already, Anna. I don't want to miss another moment." As Philip's commitment deepened, he began involving Anna and Laura in decisions about his future. He invited them to visit a house he was considering, a charming two-story home with a large backyard. Laura was instantly enchanted, running from room to room, declaring which would be hers. "It's perfect," she exclaimed, spinning in the middle of the living room. "We can all live here." Anna froze, caught off guard by the innocent declaration. Philip, who was standing nearby, glanced at her, his expression a mix of hope and apprehension. He didn't say anything, but the unspoken question hung between them. Could this house become more than just his? Could it become theirs? In the days that followed, Anna found herself reflecting on what Philippe's deeper involvement meant, not just for Laura, but for her as well. She had spent so much of her life building walls around her heart, guarding herself against the pain of loss and disappointment. Letting Felipe in, fully and completely, would mean tearing down those walls. One evening, as she watched Laura color at the kitchen table, Anna decided to confront her fears. She turned to Felipe, who was flipping through a magazine on the couch. "Can we talk?" she asked. Felipe looked up, sensing the gravity of her tone. Of course. They moved to the balcony, where the crisp night air wrapped around them like a blanket. Anna took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I've been thinking about what you said. About moving closer, about being more involved." Felipe nodded, waiting patiently. "I'm not going to lie," Anna continued. "The idea scares me. I'd spent so long trying to keep everything together on my own. Letting someone else in, it's not easy for me." Felipe reached for her hand, his touch gentle. "I understand, Anna, and I don't want to rush you. But I also want you to know that I'm here. For you and for Laura. Whatever that looks like, however long it takes." Anna looked at him, her heart softening. "I know you are, and I want to try to let you in." Philip's smile was small but genuine. "That's all I could ask for." The next few months were a period of adjustment. Philip purchased the house, and while Anna and Laura didn't move in immediately, they spent more and more time there. Weekends were filled with laughter as they painted walls, planted flowers in the garden, and made the space their own. For Laura, the transition was seamless. She loved having a yard to play in and took pride in helping decorate her new room. For Anna, it was a slower process. She found herself torn between her fear of losing her independence and her growing realization that she didn't have to do everything alone anymore. One evening, as they sat around the dining table in Philippe's new home, Laura made an announcement. "This is my favorite house ever," she said, her eyes bright. "Because it feels like Mommy's watching us here." Anna and Felipe exchanged a look, both moved by Laura's words. Beatrice's presence was still felt in every decision they made, every step they took. She had brought them together, and in many ways, she was still guiding them. As time went on, the lines between their individual lives blurred. Felipe became more than just a co-parent. He became Anna's confidant, her partner. They didn't rush into labels or expectations, but their bond deepened in ways neither of them had anticipated. One night, as they sat on the porch watching Laura chase fireflies in the yard, Felipe turned to Anna. "You know what," he said, his voice soft. "I never imagined my life would look like this, but I wouldn't trade it for anything." Anna smiled, her heart full. "Neither would I." And as they sat together, watching Laura's laughter light up the night, Anna realized that their future, whatever it held, was one they would face together, as a family.